This week, Microsoft break cover and go all out. Sony could be measuring your sweat and how excited you're getting. And the prices of $399 for a console are looking more and more unlikely. Let's dive in. So just when we were all starting to think that Microsoft were being a little too quiet, Phil Spencer published a blog post going all in on a great amount of detail concerning the Xbox Series X. Now the silence from Sony now is becoming deafening, and they really need to start to announce something very, very soon. Previous generations of console have always been about the T's in the flops, man. By that I mean, of course, teraflops. Now, the amount of direct graphical processing that the console can achieve in real time. The Xbox One X, for example, has 6 teraflops, the PlayStation Pro 4.2 teraflops. The current thinking and rumour and suggestion is that Sony are aiming at 9.2 teraflops for the PlayStation 5. Microsoft have just announced that the Xbox Series X will have a staggering 12 teraflops. Now let's put that into some real perspective. The NVIDIA 2080 Ti, the top of the range gaming GPU, the very same GPU that I have in my PC that cost shy just of £1,000, can push around 13.5 teraflops, depending on overclocking and whichever brand version you're choosing. Microsoft with AMD, as always, much like Sony, have created custom silicon where the CPU and GPU elements are all on one chip, otherwise known as an SoC chip or system on chip. Now, this could mean actual further speed increases due to a reduction in the pipeline between the CPU and GPU, and the ability to make the custom silicon more efficient due to its design and function. This could mean then that the Xbox Series X could push near towards that 2080 Ti, a sort of gold mine, really. It's amazing what they're managing, very closely managing to perform. You know, it's just truly staggering. I don't know how they're managing to do it. To further prove that Microsoft are creating a console that is not only next-gen in the truest sense of the word, really, but also very forward-looking, using the AMD Navi architecture, which it's not even out for PC yet, not until I think either June or July. So, it's incredible that they're using technology that's not even out on PC in a next-gen console. And it's not the first time they have done this. They did this with AMD on the Xbox 360, I believe. They were using technology that was due to be released on PC later that same year. But it doesn't end there on the custom silicon front either. The CPU has also surprised, with the console using AMD's latest Zen 2 and RNDA 2 architectures, allowing for faster compute cycles on a smaller die, which means less heat and less energy consumption. Now, of course, don't be misled through this sort of idea that it's going to be tiny and not use a lot. It will be dishing out an awful lot of heat and will require an incredible amount of cooling, which is why I imagine the top of the console has that huge, enormous exhaust or intake. I don't believe we know which it is yet, whether it is an innie or an outie. We will find out in due course. Other tech that is very much next-gen and high-end PC, of course, is ray tracing, which we've only seen for the last year or so on top-end PC GPUs. The good news is that they're using DirectX ray tracing, which means that developers don't have to learn something new, and they can very quickly get up to speed because it's tech and technology rather that they already are familiar with. Finally, on the exciting hardware front, there is variable rate shading, which basically is a fancy terminology for reducing the quality of shading and textures in areas that perhaps aren't so visible to the naked eyes. So peripheral areas on the gaming screen, for instance, or darker areas that don't need super high resolution textures or shaders. So this can then be reduced automatically on the fly to enable the GPU to work on textures that do matter, the ones right in front of your face. So of course, next gen is all about SSDs, and Sony too, as we know, have announced much the same, with a quick resume function as well, similar but hopefully better to what we've experienced on Xbox One and the One X. Dynamic latency input, which from what I can gather is quite, although the term is quite vague, but from what I can gather, I assume it's a means of allowing the Wi-Fi connectivity of the controller and the console to reduce the amount of lag to a minimal amount. Now, Phil Spencer is saying the response is immediate, but you know, we will have to see what exactly immediate actually truly means. It's also great to see that the console will have HDMI 2.1 with ALLM, auto low latency mode, and VRR, variable rate refresh technologies. They're really only the latest high-end current TVs that pretty much have come out this year will have and be able to use. But it does show that Microsoft are really looking to the future for this console, and the adoption and update of these new technologies, of course, will filter down into cheaper sets as we move forward over the years and start to become the norm. For now, for most of us, even those of us like me that have a TV that cost me a small fortune but is only a couple of years old, you know, we won't benefit either. But when a new TV is incoming in the House of Wisson, then this console will truly sing. Talking of which, frame rates will be up to 120 FPS, providing, of course, your TV or monitor can support it. It's also good to know that Microsoft's first-party games will receive additional updates to take advantage of the Xbox Series X, but also developers will be given the same option. There won't be a separate disc media for the Xbox Series X, so it will use existing media. So the Xbox One, the Xbox One X, and the Xbox Series X will all use the same disc, meaning that by using their smart delivery method, the console will only take what it can process based on the console version. So no massive textures required for an Xbox One S, for example, when it can't use them. But the Xbox Series X will take the additional textures, more likely, I would imagine, by download, as Blu-rays only have a capacity of 50 gigabytes. And of course, we're seeing games become much larger and larger and larger. So Microsoft clearly haven't disappointed. You know, it's incredible what they've announced here. And Sony, I am sure, have really sat up and I imagine are starting to pay attention with this news. But I'm quite sure, I would imagine also, that they were expecting this too. We know very little, of course, what the PS5 will have in terms of hardware, and it's very likely to be lower on the teraflop side. However, it's important to note that it is only part of the story. We've seen what amazing and incredible things Sony have managed to achieve with their own custom hardware. And for the PS5, I'm quite sure that what they will have, what they will do is if they will have a few tricks up their sleeve also. It's also additionally important to note that unless you're a nerd that actually understands all of this tech nonsense and follows all of this stuff, to most people, the average Joe, the average parent, who will be forking out at least what I would say would be anything between now $500 to $600 for a console such as this, and perhaps the same pricing perhaps for the PS5, as both Microsoft and Sony are having issues with reducing costs, that to a parent buying this pre-Christmas, it will be the games, the hype, and the cost of the machine that will be important, not the amount of teraflops. So let's also not forget that there are many more millions of existing PS4 owners than there are Xbox One owners out there. Microsoft, in a way, have to try and convert some to move over to the Xbox side, whereas Sony simply need to market to their base. Talking of Sony, a recent patent filing suggests that they are developing, or at least have the idea of, a controller that measures your pulse and sweat whilst you're playing. Nice. To then feed that information into the game to produce whatever instance the developer wishes from that data. It's more than likely, as ever with the case of many of these patents, that they're just ideas, something to patent that they can potentially profit from in the future. But for now, it's very, very likely to see that it's unlikely to be any part of the PS5 controller, certainly in the next few years. Well, I think I need to go and lie down now. We've had an incredibly exciting 24 hours. It's already been exciting so far. We've been kind of sort of been quiet on the whole news front, and it's great to get some real information to get our teeth into, and I'm sure this is just the beginning of it. You know, there's a lot more to come, and really this is just the start of the year in terms of the whole next gen thing. Sony need and must come out with something very soon. They need to steal some of that Microsoft hype now. The ball is very much in Sony's court, and Microsoft have played a blinder that pretty much has surprised everyone. So come on, Sony, time to ante up and show your hand. So that's it for this week. Back next week with another next gen latest. Who knows what we'll be talking about next week. But don't forget, there are also other videos that I do daily as well. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, as that always helps the video and the channel, of course. Consider subscribing if you like videos on leaks, peaks, news, reviews, guides, calibrations, and how-tos on everything related to tech, gaming, PC, audio, and TVs. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to click the bell. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.